God, I am done with this. I am done with this. I am fed up of this. Now I don't know where to go. I am finding myself in a full stop. What more should I do? I am feeling stuck here. I am saturated. What am I talking about? So my dear friends, welcome to PMC English first of all, and my name is Parinitha Patri, and I welcome you all to this amazing series of episodes called a Spiritual Glossary. And today we are going to talk about the word called saturation. We might feel stuck sometimes. We don't know what to do next. We are crystallized, we are saturated in many ways, not one. So why do we feel saturated? Even on the spiritual path, how can one feel saturated, and how can we understand this term called saturation so that we don't fall into it? So let us now try to understand the word called saturation. Those who try to advance on the spiritual path and in the meantime live a normal life often confront a situation which is called as spiritual saturation. Saturation is an interesting phenomenon. When a sponge can no longer hold any more water, we say it is saturated. A similar thing happens to the human mind or the human soul. At a certain point, it can no longer absorb knowledge, wisdom, or energy. Saturation is also stagnation or decay. Especially on the spiritual path, those who are saturated hurt not only themselves but also those around them. And spiritual saturation has many signs, many symbols, many signals. Spiritual saturation leads to crystallization of reasoning, to dogmas and doctrines, and finally to fanaticism. A person who is spiritually saturated loses his interest in self-perfection. The next sign is that the person gradually falls about what saturation is, why it happens, and what are the signals of, what are the signs of saturation that we can see in our life. And that's all for today's episode for Spiritual Glossary, my dear friends. I'll see you again next time. Keep watching PMC English. Namaste.